night. Well, I'm still searching for something right. But as the dark steals the light, mine won't let me turn and fight what I know I might be losing if I don't trust. If I keep standing in this rain, I'm bound to rust. With the heart of a lion, I keep moving west, straight from Mount Zion. And I'm moving it lonely, I'm keeping it strong, yeah. I'm moving out alone. Big I need, don't turn and run. Revolution, it's just big I need, don't turn and run, no, don't turn and run. The revolution, well, it is only begun. Turn and run, we must start out forward. I hear this revolution. Don't turn and run, the revolution has just begun. Don't turn and run, no, don't turn and run, the revolution, well, it is only begun. Turn and run, we must start out forward. I hear this revolution.
I think y'all was feeling that. Was y'all feeling sun-dried vibes? Give it up again. They came all the way from Columbia, South Carolina. They could have been anywhere in the world, but they chose to be here with us. And they got a show tonight up there, so this was a stretch for them, but they still made it. Give it up one more time for sun-dried vibes. We're going to bring up another speaker. He's an independent activist in this game. He's dedicated. He wants to commit to change like all of us out here. That's why we're here. I want you to make some noise for Mr. Trout. Mr. Trout, you making your way up here. I see him. Make some noise for Tim Trout. Woo! Give it up, give it up, give it up, give it up. Give up some energy, people.
Mr. Trout, no doubt.
It's a little greasy.
Not that I'm aware of.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out here and showing your support. It's people like you coming out here and helping us that will get this effort passed. The more I come to understand in my life, the more it becomes increasingly clear just how little I actually know. With that in mind, I thought it apt to start my presentation today with the words of several far wiser and more influential individuals than myself. I'll begin with a quote from Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of these United States.
Oh no.
Prohibition goes beyond the bounds of reason in that it attempts to control a man's appetite by legislation and makes a crime out of things that are not crimes. A prohibition law strikes a blow at the very principles upon which our government was founded. Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds of the past century, had this to say about prohibition. The prestige of government has undoubtedly been lowered considerably by the prohibition law. For nothing is more destructive to respect for the government and the law of the land than passing laws which cannot be enforced. It is an open secret that the dangerous increase of crime in this century is closely connected with this. In his 1969 essay, Marijuana Reconsidered, noted astrophysicist, astronomer, and cosmologist Carl Sagan made the following statement. The illegality of cannabis is outrageous, an impediment to the full utilization of a drug which helps produce the serenity and insight, sensitivity and fellowship so desperately needed in this increasingly mad and dangerous world. The war on drugs has been in effect for over 40 years with the stated aims of reducing the availability, use of, and harms of various substances. The primary target of this campaign is and always has been cannabis. After all this time, I find it prudent to ask, has it been effective in achieving its stated goals? What have been the effects of this policy on our country? Cannabis is cheaper, slightly more potent thanks to selective breeding, more readily available, and used by more than ever before. It's actually easier for a high school student to gain access to cannabis than it is for them to get alcohol, because it's an unregulated industry and drug dealers don't card. But now, let me give you some of the direct effects of prohibition. Since its inception, the war on drugs has cost the U.S. taxpayers over $1 trillion. Each year, nearly 1 million of those same taxpayers are going to jail for nonviolent, victimless drug-related offenses. It costs us about $30,000 to house each one of those inmates for 1 year. So, just how many people are getting arrested, and how do I even put the numbers in perspective? As of 2009, the United States had a national incarceration rate of 743 prisoners per every 100,000 people in the population. That's the highest incarceration rate of any country on the planet. As a comparison, China's 2009 incarceration rate was only 120 prisoners per 100,000 people in population. America, the land of the free, puts our own citizens in jail at more than 6 times the rate of China. How could this situation possibly be any worse? We're wasting huge sums of money, putting loads of people in prison, and not achieving the stated aims of this program. What if I told you that certain groups of people were being arrested more than others? What if the color of someone's skin affected how likely they were to end up in prison? The United States incarcerates black males at nearly 7 times the rate of white males. A black man is 7 times more likely to end up in prison than I am, through no fault of his own. So what has this war on drugs really gotten us? A massive $1 trillion for-profit prison system filled with higher numbers of mostly black people than anywhere else in the history of the world. It's a policy that systematically disenfranchises shockingly higher numbers of minorities for non-violent, victimless crimes. It's a policy that has turned the land of the free into a country with only 6% of the global population, but 25% of the prison population. I will now call you back to my quote from the beginning of the presentation. Prohibition goes beyond the bounds of reason in that it attempts to control a man's appetite through legislation and makes crimes out of things that are not crimes. A prohibition law strikes a blow at the very principles upon which our government was founded. This country is over 240 years old, and in the last brief 60 or so, we've prohibited the use of a plant because corporate interests were allowed to pervert democracy. The latest Gallup poll shows that for the first time since they started asking this question in 1969, that more Americans support the legalization of marijuana than its continued prohibition. Only 46% of those polled were opposed. No longer is this an issue where someone gets to talk down at us from a high horse with superior numbers. A majority of this country wants to have our fully legitimate discussion about marijuana legalization, and we want to have it today. Now we come to the problem. With 50% of the citizens in a representative democracy in favor of a certain policy, you would expect nearly 50% of our elected officials to feel the same. In reality, we're talking about the barest fraction supporting our efforts with little to no effect on the national scale. We've come to the point that we have 8 states with legalized industrial hemp production and almost 16 states plus Washington, D.C. allowing medical marijuana. How did we get this progress? The only way to get legislation changed is by having politicians motivated by our concerns. The only way to motivate politicians is to convince them that there's someone else willing to pay attention to our concerns if they don't. We have to convince politicians that if they don't pay attention, we're going to fire them for their lack of public service.
That's right! Yeah!
Here are the things that all of you can do today to start having an impact. First of all, register to vote. If you are not registered to vote, register in the next week, please. 2, you must become engaged in local politics. You have to familiarize yourself with the candidates that are running and their platforms. Be aware that there's more than just an election every 4 years. You can vote every year for your local officials. 4, register to get updates from organizations like NORML, Drug Policy Alliance, Georgia for Cannabis, Marijuana Policy Project, Students for Sensible Drug Policy, Educators for Sensible Drug Policy. I could keep going, but I'll stop here. Another thing you could do is to become active, volunteering for rallies and peaceful protests like this one. We're having another rally on 420. If you'd like to get involved, please contact me. And finally, use your vote to impact change. Half of the country already wants cannabis legal. We're at the tipping point. We're at the culmination of over 60 years of arrests, destroyed lives, protests, smoke-ins, and paranoid looks over shoulders. Now it's just a question of how long it will take us to motivate our elected officials. I leave you once again with the words of a man far greater than myself. Prohibition goes beyond the bounds of reason in that it attempts to control a man's appetite by legislation and makes a crime out of things that are not a crime. Prohibition strikes a blow at the very principles upon which our government was founded. Thank you.
Yep. Give it up for Tim one more time. Give it up. Listen, we still got a lot of energy to give you, so we're hoping you can give it all back. So we're gonna try this legalize one more time on the count of 3. If you can work with me, it will be greatly appreciated. On the count of 3, legalize. 1, 2, 3. Legalize! 1, 2, 3. Legalize! One more time. 1, 2, 3. Legalize! Good. We're gonna introduce one more speaker before we go into another band. Mr. Harry Petrie. He is the liaison for Georgia for Cannabis, state liaison. So I need you to make it up for Harry Petrie, AKA most affectionately known as Harry Hydro. Give it up!
I'm going to be short. When I took speech class a long time ago, I was taught that you should have a great beginning, a good ending, and they should be very close together. I'm going to talk about a unique subject today. Cannabis is a survival item. The end of the world as we know it. Zombie apocalypse. When the shit hits the fan. Whatever you want to call it, if there is a time in the breakdown of society and chaos rules, then the prepared person will be a survivor. There are a great many things that one must gather and be aware in preparing for this apocalyptic future. Stocking essential items, simplifying one's life, contemplating what bits of civilization are not necessary. Not your ordinary thinking. We are indoctrinated in thinking that the future is always going to be brighter and better. Don't think bad thoughts. Live for the moment, be happy. But now cannabis has not been listed on any survival list. Marijuana, weed, hemp, whatever you want to call it, has been illegal for 70 years. Of course, it wouldn't be included on a survival list. But here's the thing, it ought to be, even if it is illegal. Why? With marijuana being America's #1 cash crop, with 16 states making it legal for medical use, a lot about the plant, cannabis sativa, has been learned. Thought to be the first agricultural crop, it has thousands of years of history of use by man. It provides fiber and clothing and shelter. The seed is nutritionally complete for the human body. The flowers have been proven to be medically tuned to the human body for repair and healing. It's also enhanced man's knowledge with its mind-expanding clarity. So a plant that can feed you, heal you, and will grow almost anywhere should have a place in the survivalist rucksack. Like heirloom vegetable seeds, cannabis can make life a little more livable in the post-apocalyptic world. Also, there's one other aspect of having a good collection of cannabis seeds on hand. That's barter. Cannabis seeds themselves can be more valuable than gold or diamonds. And being able to barter for what you need for a few ounces of dried bud would be a wonderful thing to have. Cannabis is not on any survival list, at least not until now, but it's on mine. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Keep track of us on Cannabis for Georgia, Georgia for Cannabis on Facebook, and we'll see you in the near future. All right, man.
Give it up for Harry Petrie, aka Harry Hydro. Y'all still with us? Y'all still with us? I love it, I love it. We're gonna rock out with my homie, for real, my man 50 Grand. He came down here, he's from Washington, D.C. He just got off tour. He was in Paris, London, over in Europe, rocking out. I swear he just got back in the States. So give it up for the Dubber! Good, good, good. And also, real quick, please, the shirts you see that say Capitol Cannabis Reform Jam, please, if you can, pick up one of those shirts. Get over here, sign a petition, get with Georgia Normal, pick up one of those shirts. This is a free event, and this is how we fund these kind of things, people, from you. Helping out, kicking in, donating if you can. Please help us out. Go over to the tables. See all the people you see out here holding something, and just, if you can, anything, please, we need it. The Dubber, rock 'em.
Check. Microphone checker. Check.
One of the many of us who didn't have to be here today, but we came out anyway for this wonderful cause. Make some noise for yourself. Now check this out. We got our headliner speaker coming out. He came all the way out here from Portland. Is it Portland? Portland, Oregon. He's with Normal. He's a national rep with Normal, actually, and runs the Normal Daily Stash. If you've probably seen him running around here, this whole thing has been Ustreamed. So you're out there and people are seeing what a wonderful thing we're doing out here. So I need you to give it up. I need a lot of energy. I know all of us ain't out here like it was earlier. I need to feel like it is. Make a lot of noise. Give it up. 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 Give it up for Radical Russ!
MC.
How you doing, Atlanta? It's Saturday, November 12th, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Probably right here, right? Give it up for Daniel DeZuko, too. What an MC. What an MC. So, I come here to talk to you about what can be done, what should be done, and what will be done, and that is the end of cannabis prohibition, not later, but now. I have been to the promised land, Portland, Oregon, or as we like to call it, Potland. I'm a caregiver in the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program. The state of Oregon passed medical marijuana in 1998. This is my card. It's my caregiver card. And because I have this card, I'm legally entitled to grow 6 mature marijuana plants, 18 immature cannabis plants, and possess on my person at any time 1 1/2 pounds of usable cannabis. I have one of these cards. 50,000 Oregon patients have these cards. 40,000 Oregon caregivers have these cards. 25,000 Oregon growers have these cards, working out to about 750,000 pounds of legal cannabis going around the state of Oregon. And yet, the train still runs on time. People still go to work. Kids still go to school. Dogs play in the park. In other words, Portland, Oregon is not that much different than any other major American city. Legalizing medical use of cannabis hasn't really changed much at all about Portland, Oregon. There's a lot of people that are afraid of cannabis, and I think that's primarily why we're here today, is to show our fellow citizens. I hear them honking as they're going by, honking in support of what we're doing here today. It reminds me of something about how people think and how people act politically in this world. It's, you know, you remember junior high? Y'all remember junior high, and you went to the first junior high dance? And all the boys stood on one side, and all the girls, they stood on the other side. Everybody was afraid to dance until that one couple got out there and started to dance. And then the next couple got out, and then finally everybody starts to dance. Well, politics are kind of like that when we're talking about something that's scary to people like marijuana, like ending prohibition. There was a poll they did in Minnesota, a 2007 poll. They were trying to pass medical marijuana in Minnesota, and they asked people, do you support medical use of cannabis? 3 out of 4 people said, oh yes, of course. Then they asked the second question, do you think your neighbor supports medical use of cannabis? 3 out of 4 people said no. 40 years of this war on drugs has been so powerful in propaganda that it's convinced half of the American people that the other half don't believe what they really believe. It's those people driving by honking that when we ask in polls and some anonymous pollster calls up and says, hello, we'd like to ask you, do you support the breaking of state and federal laws with regard to marijuana? Well, of course a lot of people say no. They're afraid. They don't know who's calling. Yeah, of course, no, I wouldn't support that. But when they're anonymous, when they're driving by, when they're honking, they're willing to give that support. They need to know that there's other people out there that think just like them. They're not going to be the only couple on the dance floor if they come out and support the legalization or the change in marijuana laws. So give yourselves a hand for being the first couple on the dance floor. Now, medical marijuana is a beautiful thing, and it has led to some amazing reforms that we've seen in the laws here. And I can't tell you, I do Normal's national podcast. It's a daily live talk radio show at live.normal.org. You can pick it up on iTunes, listen to it every day. I interview people, I interview doctors and scientists and lawyers and actors and musicians and everybody who knows the truth about cannabis. And I get to go to these events about once a month. I fly all over the country. And every time I go to one of these events, happened here, I end up talking to someone that goes, well, you know, Russ, I use cannabis medically. Before I used medical marijuana, I was on like 8 Vicodin a day, or 12 Vicodin a day, or 16 OxyContin, or whatever obnoxious, terrible load of opioid painkillers they got them on. And since I've tried cannabis, I've been able to wean myself off of those opioids. I've been able to use something that doesn't stop up my bowels and doesn't cause upset stomach. I'm able to recover and live a non-zombified life. So many pain patients I know who said, when I was on all those painkillers, man, oh yeah, it killed the pain, killed my ability to form sentences too, right? And then they find cannabis and they're like, oh my God, you can't believe it, I'm using half of the pills I used to use. I'm using 1/3 of the pills I used to use. It's amazing. And so when we talk about legalizing medical marijuana, there's a lot of people that don't like the sound of that. If you're Bristol Myers Squibb, if you're Eli Lilly, if you're Merck, if you're Pfizer, you don't like the idea of somebody using 1/2 to 1/3 of what you sell. That's not a good idea. And there's so many other ways in which we are discriminated against and you know, just prejudice against us as medical cannabis users. Now, I'm what they call a recreational cannabis user. I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I don't need the permission of a king, a court, a cleric, or a clinician to use my weed. God put that seed in the ground, it grew up, it's for me. Okay? But I understand why some people are nervous about that, though. I can dig that. I can see why maybe that's a step too far. Maybe in Georgia it's a step way too far. I can understand that. So when we bring up the medical use, we have to show people that yes, there is people that smoke pot, and yes, there is that culture around pot smoking, quote unquote, and that has nothing to do with stopping the suffering of sick and disabled people. They are two issues, people. They are two issues. If you think that, you know, if there's people out there, and I know all of us here, we're pro-legalization, but imagine there's someone out there that's like, well, I support it for cancer patients, but I don't know about people just getting high. Okay, great, let's take that step then. Let's take that step then, right? Let's go at least that far. Because to me, it really blows my mind whenever I hear the prohibitionists talk about, well, that cannabis might have some value for cancer and AIDS, but you know, if we let them have that medical, why, they're just going to get around it. They're going to just smoke it to get high. Oh, so you're telling me cancer patients need to suffer so high school kids don't smoke dope? Well, guess what? High school kids are smoking dope already. So why are we letting the cancer patients suffer? Why are we letting the AIDS patients suffer? Obviously, prohibition has not stopped a single person who wants to use cannabis from using cannabis, except the people who need it the most. I'm never going to run out. They could end medical marijuana in Oregon tomorrow. I grew up in Idaho, man. And so I know Republican red state, you know, Christian conservative kind of stuff. I know that stuff. I was never at a loss for finding weed. I could always find a grower. I could always find a friend. Somebody's got some cannabis somewhere. But my friend who's got Lou Gehrig's disease, she can't wheel her chair down to the parking lot at the CVS to pick up from some dealer. My friend who's got multiple sclerosis, she shouldn't have to go try to find some sort of hookup. This is a medicine, and the more that we can keep telling people that and keep explaining that to them and show them the real people whose lives have been changed by it, and I've met some of you here today, and I meet more of you every time I go and do these things. Let me give you a couple of brief examples. Kathy Jordan's a friend of mine, suffers from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Lou Gehrig's disease, right? This is a disorder that causes the nerves and connections in your body to slowly rot away. Basically rot inside your own body. She was given a diagnosis of this Lou Gehrig's disease, said, well, Kathy, better prepare your will and get your friends and family ready for your passage, because you really have about 18 months to 2 years to live with this. It's a progressive disease. You're just going to get worse and worse. You're going to die. Gave her a death sentence. And she accepted that because, well, he's a doctor. He's a medical professional. He went to school and all. So she took the handfuls of pills they gave her, all of the pharmaceuticals they gave her. It made her worse. She got all depressed and all foggy. And it didn't help the ALS much. She started getting worse and worse and worse. One day, she's with some friends in Florida, and they're on the beach. And one of her friends says, hey, Kathy, smoke this. Give this a try. She'd never done any illicit substance in her life. And she's like many people, oh, no, I don't do drugs. I merely have these 9 different pharmaceutical pill bottles that I use every day, but I don't do drugs. So she finally relented, finally smoked that joint, and I can tell you, man, if I had a dime for every time I've heard this story, I smoked that joint, and it was like magic, like the first time anything had ever worked, that had ever affected me, that had ever taken away that pain and that spasticity and that terrible nausea that I have from all those pills. That day that Kathy Jordan smoked that joint was 1989. She is still alive today thanks to cannabis. 2 years to live, she's alive today. So don't tell me it's not medicine. Don't tell me it's just people getting high. It's my friend's life that this saved. I'll tell you about another friend. Because we talk about medical marijuana, and I want to transition this to looking further forward. Because I know, again, we're in Georgia. We got to live with reality here. Medical is something maybe we can start to approach people with. Legalization might be a long ways off the hill for now. But keep an eye forward to that eventual legalization, because I can tell you every single problem that exists in a medical marijuana state today exists because cannabis is illegal for the non-medical use. California started medical marijuana. They said, hey, medical marijuana, you can grow as much as you want. Doctor can say you can have as many plants as you like. You can get it for any condition you want. You can go to dispensaries and buy it. The next 3 states to legalize medical went, oh, that's a little much. How about we just have a list of conditions, we limit it to a few plants, we limit it to a few ounces. And then the next couple of states that legalized said, whoa, even that's a little too much. These people are growing marijuana at home. Let's take away their right to grow their own medicine. Every medical marijuana law that has passed since 1996, Prop 215, has gotten more and more and more restrictive. It's gotten harder and harder and harder for patients to get on that list. And